welcome to ShinKyu University. I'm very excited to be interviewing Ehrland Truitt. I have known Ehrland for a really long time. He's an amazing acupuncturist doing some really awesome things for Japanese acupuncture in the United States. So I'm just going to have him kind of introduce himself first. Before we get into that, make sure to like and subscribe and hit that little bell to be notified when we put out new videos. The whole purpose of this channel is to help bridge TCM acupuncture and Japanese acupuncture and moxibustion together. So to give you a bridge between the amazing theory that you learned in school and the amazing technique that the Japanese acupuncture really is strong in. And so that's the whole purpose. And a little thing that you can do to help us with that purpose, again, is just to like and subscribe, because it helps the algorithm get us to more people who want to learn just like you. So without further ado, Ehrland, I'm going to have you give yourself a little introduction.
Thank you, Maya. It's a pleasure to be here. Nice to see you again after quite a while. Even if it's electronic, we'll get to see each other in person here soon, I think. So thank you so much for having me. My name is Ehrland Truitt. I'm a doctor of Oriental medicine in the state of New Mexico. In the States, most people probably know there's all sorts of different licensure depending on what the state you're in. So I started studying acupuncture in 1997. I got my license here in New Mexico in 2000. So I've been practicing, this will be 22 years with my license. I got into East Asian medicine when I first arrived at undergraduate university in the States. I was a biochem major that lasted for about a week. And then on that Friday, someone gave me a copy of the Tao Te Ching, and it had the Chinese characters on one side and the English translation on the other side. I stayed up all night with that book. And on Monday morning, I was a Chinese literature major. So I studied Chinese literature in undergraduate. I had a little crisis of faith, maybe you can say, with what I was going to do with a degree in Chinese literature. And so through a number of turns, I found my way to Chinese medicine as opposed to Chinese literature. At the time, it had all the same philosophy, all the same ideas, all the same concepts. Chinese medicine did. And so the switch from Chinese literature to Chinese medicine was relatively easy to make. I went to acupuncture school here in Santa Fe, New Mexico. I went to the International Institute of Chinese Medicine, which is now long gone, one of the many acupuncture schools that have disappeared in the States. And while I was in acupuncture school, I met a senior practitioner here in Santa Fe by the name of Ehrland A. He had studied Kodotama, which is a system of Japanese acupuncture started by Nakazono sensei, who was here in Santa Fe and started the Kodotama Institute back in the 70s. So while I was going to acupuncture school, I was also doing an apprenticeship with a senior practitioner. And we'll get to this more later, but I really feel like that was one of the most helpful things for me, is not only to have school, but also to have a teacher who I could study with, who I could sit treatment in their clinic, watch them practice. And I really feel like the acupuncture school allowed me to pass the national exam, and the apprenticeship really taught me how to do acupuncture. So when I finished my acupuncture degree in the institution, I also sort of concluded my official apprenticeship. I stayed in that office for another 6 years after finishing my apprenticeship to get my own personal practice going. And in that time is when I first met Koei Kuwahara, who taught me Hari style acupuncture. And we can talk about what are the differences or what are these particular systems. But I've spent the last 20 years studying with Kuwahara sensei, and he has been generous enough to introduce me to a lot of teachers in Japan. I think I first went to Japan in 2002, and Kuwahara sensei was kind enough to introduce me to many senior teachers over there. So my acupuncture education and training, I feel like I've been very lucky in terms of having interactions with very senior teachers, which has been a great gift to me. So around that same time is when we started the High Desert Hari Society. That was, I think, in 2001. And initially, the Hari Society was a group of us who just wanted to study together. So we started an organization through which we could bring teachers to Santa Fe and do seminars. So in a certain sense, it was a little bit self-serving in the beginning. I figured, hey, if I organize these seminars, then I get to study with all these great teachers. So that was a great boon as well, was the opportunity to have all these teachers come to Santa Fe. And I thought, great, if I organize, they'll come, and what a wonderful opportunity to study. Along the way, I've had a lot of help with the Hari Society to make it what it is today. We're still continuing to offer seminars. Of course, the last couple of years, not left in person, but we have still persevered and tried to do some in-person seminars. So now here, 2022, I run a private practice here in Santa Fe. I taught at the International Institute of Chinese Medicine. I taught at Southwest Acupuncture College. Currently, I'm not associated with any institution, just the Hari Society. So at this point, we're still organizing seminars here in Santa Fe, and I spend most of my time in the clinic, day in, day out, week in, week out. I feel like that's one of the most important things, is just having experience treating patients. They have been my teachers for many years, and yeah, now after 25 years of studying acupuncture, I've had such great experience in the clinic, and I feel like that's where our teaching comes from, is our actual hands-on experience in the clinic treating people. So that's a little of my background, how I got into it. I can say, on the one hand, I feel like I got very lucky. And on the other hand, I feel that when the opportunities were presented, something in me said, okay, this is the right opportunity, go take this, follow this. And there have been many of them along the way. Maya and I have interacted in a number of those ways. Some of those Japan trips have been great opportunities to study as well. So that's the sort of thumbnail sketch of my history, or how I got into this medicine.
Your origin story, so to speak.
Yeah, a little bit, I think so.
Yeah, so I mean, for those of you who have already watched some of these interviews on my channel, you know I tend to ask 3 questions. And Ehrland, you already kind of answered the first question, which is, how did you get into Japanese acupuncture? And I really love that, one of the things that I talk about a lot is that you need to find a mentor. You need to find someone who can consistently look at your work and consistently tell you what you're doing right and what you're doing wrong, right? And I love that from the beginning, you had someone like that, because I think a lot of people in the current TCM educational model are really lacking that mentorship outside of school. They might have a teacher or two that they can go to and ask for advice, but they don't really have someone that they're consistently watching in clinic, watching what results they're getting, how they're approaching different syndromes, or, different things, even as simple as pain, right? So it's really awesome that you had that from the beginning, and that you continued on creating those kinds of learning situations for yourself, because I think it's really the main reason, I would say, besides, probably there's some innate talent in there as well, but like the main reason why you were able to get to where you're at right now, because, you're considered a pretty awesome practitioner. And you're a pretty nice guy too. So I was, yeah. So I'd love to know, looking back, compared to, for example, some of the people that you went to school with in clinic, maybe that are only doing the TCM, how would you say that the Japanese acupuncture has really changed your practice, for better or for worse?
I went to acupuncture school having never had an acupuncture treatment.
Wow.
I got turned on by the philosophy, but I had never seen a needle. I had never had a needle touch my skin or be inserted or anything. So I sort of followed this thread of, hey, I really want to study this, and found the International Institute of Chinese Medicine, enrolled, went to my first few weeks of class. And of course, I think I started in January. So somewhere early February, I got a cold of some sort, a runny nose, stuffy nose, something. So I went into the student clinic, and they proceeded to thread Li20 to Bitong with, probably 28 gauge, 30 gauge needles. It was quite uncomfortable. I was gripping the side of the table and tears were coming down my face. And yes, my sinuses opened up. I mean, oh, great. Yeah, now I can breathe better. And I thought to myself in that moment, oh my goodness, is this what I signed up to learn how to do to people? I don't want to do this to people. This is uncomfortable. So that sort of pushed me in this other direction of there's got to be a different way to do this rather than this big needle, deep insertion, strong stimulation methodology. And again, like I said, I was very lucky. There was someone in town. I went to him. I said, hey, do you take apprentices? He said, go to your first year of school and then you can come study with me. So I think I did a semester and went back and went, please, can I study? And he did accept me as a student. And again, just learning a little different approach than what we learn in school in this country. And not that that information is not useful. I think it is useful, but like I said earlier, the TCM learning and all of that theory was good and it helped me pass the national exam. But I wanted to find a way to treat people that felt good to my body. And some of those initial TCM treatments were pretty rough. I mean, I tried it. I went through boxes of 28 gauge needles in the beginning. And now, we're at the 44 gauge sarin, 42 gauge sarin kind of treatment, which doesn't mean we don't do deep insertion. We do if necessary, but learning a different way of needling, again, that felt good for me is what I was looking for. And I think the big thing that started to change for me, and you've touched on this, I know, in some of your videos, the idea of palpatory medicine, the idea of hands-on palpation-based medicine, that's where I really saw the change in my practice. And part of that is watching somebody else's hands, watching their hands when they work. What are they touching? How are they touching? What are they looking for? What does it feel like? The Japanese practitioners from Maki Wei in the beginning to Kuwahara Sensei, Shudo Sensei, Ikeda, whoever, all of these names, watching their hands and how they approach people has been incredibly valuable. Kuwahara Sensei said to me once, you don't really know what someone does until you watch them in their own clinic treating their own patients. And that opportunity to be in an office with a practitioner and watch them treat their own patients, it's what they teach in class, but to see them in their own element, you really get a feel for what their approach is truly like. So those opportunities, I think, are so necessary to really make us good practitioners. In allopathic medicine, they do a residency. You get out, you get your MD, and then you go somewhere and you work and you study under some senior practitioners. Something along those lines in our medicine, I think, would be incredibly valuable. I don't know what that looks like. I don't know how we set it up. You've used the word mentorship. In Japanese, the word is deshi. How do we set up, whether it's soto deshi, outside deshi, or uchi deshi, inside deshi, how do we set up some of these programs for people so they can also get that hands-on experience? And, so many opportunities have been given to me that I feel like it's my duty to try to offer some of those opportunities to other people as well. If that's what was given to me to help me succeed, then that's what I should give to others to help them succeed as well. So again, that's the Hari Society. That's trying to figure out how to allow people in my office to observe treatments and sort of, keep the wheel turning, pass these things on to others, because I feel like I've been so lucky and so many people have shared so much with me.
God, and I mean, there was so many things that you just said that I was like, yes, 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 because I mean, let's just start at the very end, at the giving back part. I mean, I 100% agree with you. I mean, that's what I'm trying to do with ShinKyu University as well. As you said, like, I think we've both been really blessed with amazing circumstances to learn and to take those opportunities and have the buck stop here and just have all of that stuff here is just such a waste. And so that's why I really love what you've done with the Hari Society and continued for such a long time to create a community in Santa Fe that really loves to learn is quite amazing, and that's what I'm trying to do again with ShinKyu University, just a little bit more on a global scale, because I've just noticed with COVID that it might be necessary
Well,
to
so I
expand.
mean, I think this is an interesting, and it's the question of where we're headed, that
Yes.
the world's different. The world is different than it was 2 years ago. And I have to say, I would much rather sit with you in person and drink a cup of tea and have this conversation. And we'll get to do that at some point. You're in Colorado, I'm in New Mexico. And to reach people from a further distance, the student from Switzerland can't necessarily come to the seminar. So how do we reach them? How do we offer them some of the resources? So I appreciate what you're trying to do in terms of making it more global through the electronic means, to see what we can do, to see how we can reach people. Because like I said, I think the world's different than it was, like it or not. This is where we are now. So to try to make use of some of these resources and develop new resources in a larger context, rather than only the in-person seminar that you got to fly across the world to do. Now, I feel like that in-person contact is still incredibly important, because the chi transmission from person to person, I think, is where it's at. And if we can get started in this format, then people can see, oh, I'm interested in this, I would like to learn more. And then maybe they find their way to Colorado, or they find their way to New Mexico, or they show up in Japan for one of the study trips over there, that we can reach people, I hope, through this electronic means, and then really develop those relationships over time in a more personal, hands-on, individual.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and that's, when you were going back to, the Soto Deshi, the Uchi Deshi, essentially, are you coming just to every once in a while to observe? Or are you really coming every single week to observe? Would be the differences in those terms. But that's something that the reason why I love things like the Hari Desert Society, because like in ShinKyu University, we start online, and that's monthly. Every month you get to come and back electronically, right? It's not in person, but then we also have these in-person seminars. But every single time that I meet with my students, I'm consistently telling them, look, my style, Iyashi no Michi, is not the only style out there. Let's give you some foundational skills, and then you can go to, workshops with the High Desert Hari Society, or with Kiko Sensei, for example, or something like that, and really find an exceptional teacher, right? Someone who's been practicing like Yasuda Sensei or something for 30, 40 years. And then you'll have these exceptional skills because you were, getting all those foundational skills. And then you can maybe you won't be an uchideshi, maybe you're not seeing their clinic every single week, but you'll have that opportunity to at least have the base foundational education, so that when you watch what they're doing with their hands, as you said, going back to these palpatory skills, right? One of the things that I often see in seminars, and we've talked about this, Ehrland, quite a few times when we were in Japan, I think, that a lot of people come to Japan, they'll spend thousands of dollars coming to Japan, but they don't have these foundational skills, right? And so when they come to Japan, they're so caught up in like, okay, how are they holding the needle, and their approach to the body? It's just all such a different world for them, that they miss these finite things that you're talking about. And how are they touching the body? What are they looking for in the body? How are they approaching the point? How are they then communicating with the point? And so to give these students foundational skills, and then be able to study with a practitioner and get those palpatory skills, is kind of my goal in life, because I think it'll speed up the process. And I just love that, everything you say, which is why I love talking to you so much. Everything you say is, I'm like, yep. Like, you got to do that, and you got to do that. So it's just really cool to talk and to talk to someone like-minded.
Yeah, and I think given our previous conversations, I think we feel very similarly in terms of trying to develop some of those baseline skills. And, one of the things I see in the student context, I mean, I have probably taken Kuwahara Sensei's Intro to Japanese Acupuncture course. I mean, I have probably sat through that lecture with him more than I can count on two hands, basically the same class. And then I started to teach with him. So now I've given that lecture more times than I can count on two hands. And every time I sit in one of those classes, I get something new, because, you hear it the first time and you get as much as you can get. And then you take it back to the clinic. And then I realize, oh, okay, maybe this is what I was seeing. And then I go back and I study again. Oh, and I get a little bit more. And then I study again and I get a little bit more. And I think sort of changing the way we think about education in the sense that I don't just take one class and then cool, I've got it and I can do it. That, oh, I took a class and I learned some things. Now I need to go use it. And then I need to come back with some questions and say, okay, I tried this and here's this and here's this and here's my questions. Okay, cool. And then we take and we practice it again. And then we come back again. And this sort of willingness to continue the study on and on and on. When I moved to Santa Fe, I said in my head, I said, I'll live in Santa Fe as long as I'm a student. Well, 25 years later, here I still am living in Santa Fe. And that thought from way back when reveals my misunderstanding about this medicine from the very beginning, which to me is you're never not a student. Once you start down this path, we are all students forever, even with 35 years, 45 years. I look at Shudo Sensei at 60 years, or he might be 65 these days, I'm not sure. But, you know, even our senior teachers are learning every day in the clinic by the people that they see. And they talk to their colleagues and they develop this and this. And it's one of the things I really like about Japanese acupuncture. And Kuwahara Sensei has talked about it a lot, this idea of living tradition. That we learn the tradition, but as it continues from teacher to student, there is a thread that's transmitted through time. And it doesn't mean it stays exactly the same every single time. There's a root, there's a core, there's a center of that medicine, but this tradition gets passed on, and Maya learns a little thing that she does after enough time, and Ehrland learns a little thing that he does after enough time. And so it's got this flavor, but we're all continuing to learn and continuing to develop as we go through our life. And I think that, again, coming back to changing that idea about what it is to do this kind of education, as opposed to just do something, complete it, and move on, that there's always this process of learning and relearning. I mean, my favorite lecture is, tell me about yin yang. Tell me about the 5 elements. Tell me about tonification, dispersion, because those conversations, those are that's the foundation stuff. That how you hold the needle and how you do the little thing, that's cool and that's useful. And there is this continued expansion of understanding and knowledge within ourselves that allows us to do this medicine.
Well, and I too agree with you. And I think one of the things I learned, was that, I want to say it was like my first year of school in Japan. I was talking to one of my teachers. I forget what I was talking about, but we pretty much had this conversation. And he pretty much looked at me and he said, Maya, I've been doing this for 30 years and I'm still teaching the first year of acupuncture class because I think I need to relearn it. You know, and it was a huge moment for me. I was like, oh, so foundations really is a thing. And it's funny because when it goes back to I remember thinking at that moment, so my Japanese, I actually had to take first year Japanese 3 times. So I had to take it in high school, and then I took it in my first college at Teikyo. And then when I moved to Colorado University to finish my degree, I had to retake it because they wouldn't accept the credits. So I had to take first year Japanese 3 freaking times. And I remember on the 3rd time going, okay, I am really done with first year Japanese. I am ready to move on. But it's funny because after I got into 2nd year, there was a huge difference in the speed in which I learned 2nd year Japanese than compared to my classmates who had only taken it 1 time. Like an extreme difference, but so much so that by the time I got in my 3rd year, my teachers were like, okay, you're going to go on and study classical Japanese, right? And I was like, no, I'm ready to graduate. I'm done. I'm done here. But it's so true that how many times you repeat those foundations, you just get a deeper learning and a deeper understanding. And you're like, oh, actually, now I understand. Like for me, I always came at it from the technical side of things, which is funny how you say you'd love the theory, whereas I had more of a technical brain, and the theory is something that was always really difficult for me to just sit down and learn, right? And so for me, like going back to, oh, if I hold my needle just a little bit different, and if I put a different amount of pressure here, it gives me a completely different result. And if my Oshide is just a little bit different and there's slightly different shape in my, like for me, just those little tweaks and understanding the foundation and how much different result is like the fun of clinic every single day. Like
Yeah,
that for me is so much fun.
And that for me anyway, the turn on being, here's this philosophy, but what solved the question for me was you can actually do something with it. You can take this into the clinic, you can work with people, you can actually try to be of service to the community. Hopefully we can alleviate a little suffering out there in the community, but it's not just an idea in your head, it's a thing that you can actually do something with. And we get to test every day in the clinic. Oh, I tried that, how did that work? I tried that, how did that work? And I say it to my patients in the clinic, on my good days, this is what makes it so exciting and engaging about what it is that we do, is every single day is different, every single patient is different, every single technique is different. And on my crappy days, that's what's so incredibly frustrating is, well, I did this last time and now here we are this time and it doesn't do what it did the last time. So some days I'm inspired, and then other days I feel like I'm never going to learn anything. So I feel like that's both the benefit and the challenge of what it is that we do. And it starts to broach this science art conversation, which, is an interesting one, I think, about East Asian medicine, and maybe not today, but there's a longer form of that conversation about what it is that we do. Yes, there is science. Yes, there is art. And you touched on it earlier. I mean, maybe there is some innate skill and different people have different levels of innate skill, but Shudo Sensei wrote an article one time, that basically, I'm paraphrasing, I apologize, Shudo Sensei, he, said something along the lines of, if you're not willing to work, if you're not willing to study, find a new profession, because this is not the profession for you.
Time, energy, and effort, man. I say it all the time. If you don't have those three factors, I mean, they tell people all the time, unless you're like a savant, right? Which are very, one out of a million.
Few, but they're very few.
Yeah, they're very few. But, people who have a little bit of innate skill, I tell my students this all the time, especially in Moxa. I'm like, wow, you have great hands. You have hands that are made for finite work. But be careful. I always tell the students who are good in the beginning, I'm like, be careful, because I don't want you to get an ego that you can do this, because you're not going to put in the time, energy, and effort to develop it to where it's really amazing, which is what you can do. Yeah. And you can do it faster than the person next to you. But if you're not going to willing to put in these three factors and you just think you're good, you're going to be worse than all of your classmates, including the one who's, making, goobers over there next to you. You're going to be worse than all of them in 2 years because you haven't put in the time and the energy to do it.
Right. And like we've been saying, I mean, to be willing to continue to study, even if you see like, oh, cool, I can do this. Like my hands feel okay with this. I know how to do this. To continue to study over and over. I taught a seminar in September, and I had a woman here come to the seminar who she's been practicing 40 years at this point. So she's got 15, 20 more years than I do of clinical experience. She was part of the Kodotama Institute at the very beginning. She's been doing this forever and ever and ever. And I was so thrilled and honored that she would be willing to come and sit in class and go to a seminar after all those years of practice with someone like me, who is her junior by a long way, and to come and to contribute and to talk and to discuss. It was such a gift to see this kind of senior student, senior practitioner, be willing to come and hang out with all of us and go, oh yeah, what are you guys doing? Oh, here's a little way that I do that, but cool, let me see how you guys do it. And that continued interest to study.
Mm.
I admit I saw the name on the registration list. I was like, oh, geez.
I've done that
makes me
too.
a little nervous.
I have a few students in ShinKyu where I saw them register, and I literally texted my friend Anita with an O. like,
Yeah.
like it's nerve-wracking.
Right, it's nerve-wracking. And what a great sign that there are those practitioners in our field that want to continue to study, that will come out, that will spend time, that will engage with us in this way, even though they might be much more senior than we are in terms of their study history.
I completely agree. You know, when I taught in Tel Aviv, thankfully, they did not tell me this in the beginning of the workshop. So I taught a 3-day workshop, 2 days of acupuncture, 1 day of moxibustion skill. And there was an older lady in the workshop, really super sweet. She didn't have the greatest English. I have 0 Hebrew. So the communication wasn't really there, but I knew that she was really sweet and she was really trying. And I asked everyone for feedback. I do every time I do a workshop at the end, and what could I have done better to transmit the material? What didn't you like? What did you like? All that. And her feedback, I found at the end that she's a over 30-year veteran of acupuncture. She is the teachers of teachers in Israel. So like, good thing I didn't know that, because I would have freaked out. And she told me at the end of the workshop, I've been doing this medicine for 30 years. Why is only now someone taught me how to hold a needle correctly? But it's just like, not that my teaching is amazing, but the amount of, as you said, like, it's just this continued learning for your entire career and never stopping, never taking the time to say, oh, I've been doing this for 20 odd years. I don't need to learn the foundations again, of going, I've been doing this for 20 odd years. I should really go back and restudy the foundations. Like having that beginner's mindset. As Jeffrey Dan would always say in the beginning of the In Touch Japan tours, I remember this very correctly because I loved it when he said it. He said, look, TCM, Chinese medicine, is like a beautiful classical Chinese cuisine dish. There's all of these flavors mixed in, and it's really complicated and really delicious. Japanese medicine is simplistic beauty. It is literally a piece of raw fish and some rice, and that is also delicious. So, but, you have to have a different mindset when you come to Japanese medicine of, emptying your cup and saying, yeah, I studied for 20 years, but who cares? What else can I learn? Like, what can I continue learning? So I have a question though, which kind of that conversation sparked. What would you say is different about your practice compared to someone who's only done TCM for 20, 25 years? Have you noticed a difference in the people around you? Do you have communication with some of those practitioners?
It's hard for me to say if the difference is between the way that they practice or just who they are and the way they've developed their office situation practice in general. Certainly for me, one of the big differences in the way that I practice is I just see a much smaller volume of patients. I don't put in a whole bunch of needles and let people sit for 30 minutes and then come in and take them out and send them home. So some of those techniques are different. Some of the ways I run my office are a little bit different. And I don't do a big volume practice. And certainly, at least here in America, which this is another conversation I think may be different than Japan, but certainly here in the States, to take more time with people, to let them tell their story, to let them go through a little different process. It's why a lot of people come and see me in the clinic is I'm not, okay, your elbow hurts, great, on the table, put in some needles and off to the next room to see the next person. And not that there's anything wrong with that. There are a lot of practitioners who do that and do it very successfully. But taking the time to palpate, taking the time to check the pulse, to check the hara, to palpate the channels, to find the points, to a certain extent, that takes more time. But again, watching the teachers that we know in Japan, they can do it quick. It's not about necessarily having to have it take a long time, but offering a different quality of attention and a different quality of touch. Certainly here in Santa Fe, a lot of the senior TCM practitioners, they actually end up focusing more on herbology than they do on acupuncture. In one of those private moments, one of my Chinese teachers back in the day, he said, well, I'm really an herbalist, but people like the acupuncture, so I give them the acupuncture, but really what I'm here to do is herbs. And I had a lot of those Chinese teachers that their specialty was really herbs as opposed to acupuncture. And the focus on acupuncture and moxibustion, the needle, the moxa, I really found a lot more of that with my Japanese teachers. So what's the difference in those long-time practitioners? Maybe how the office runs, but also just the quality of attention and the quality of touch that we can offer, I think is different than in a high volume practice. And again, not that I'm criticizing high volume practice, just that it's a different experience.
It's different. Well, and I think it's really important for a lot of practitioners, especially those who are students, who are trying to, envision how their practice is going to look in the future, for them to, hear from senior practitioners, you don't have, there's other models besides this, 60 patients a day or whatever, or 30 patients a day and 150 patients a week. And you have to have other practitioners. And like, after 10 years, you're burnt out. Like there's a different model of practice that you can have and still be very financially stable. And I think it, as you said, like it's a different kind of person that's going to want that, it's different kinds of practices. I think, someone who's, I don't know if I can't explain the personality, but I think it does, there's a bit of personality, as you were saying in there.
Yeah, definitely. I think so. I mean, and again, just if I think of my own story, I tried to find what it is that I wanted in the clinic, what felt good to me, what was supportive for me, what was helpful for me, and to try to learn that so I can offer that to others. And again, I think there's this, sort of, at least I see it in the TCM universe, that this idea, like, as long as you're using serins, then you're doing Japanese acupuncture. And like, there's a different thing going on. It's not just, the needle's a little thinner and maybe you don't get the chi experience with the needles. Because, I mean, you know it as well as I do. We watched Tanioka, bloodlet all sorts of stuff on different patients, or use moxibustion, or do needles, or do shallow needles, or do deep insertion needles. All of these techniques are appropriate given the right patient. And sometimes the challenge, I think, is coming up with, what is the right approach for this particular patient? What techniques do I use for this patient?
Exactly.
I always tell the story when I treat of, the lady who came in with back pain, and I did single needle, I did retaining needle, I did Kyutoshin, I did Okyu, I did some Tuina, I maybe bloodlet a couple of points. I mean, I did everything under the sun in one treatment. And she went home and she felt so much worse after my treatment because I wasn't clear. I couldn't decide, like, for back pain, I know this and this and this and this and this and this and this, so I'm just gonna use all of it. And the longer version of the story is it was actually a great experience. I'm still learning from that woman because I keep telling the story that, that was me not knowing how to choose, how to pick, how to assess the constitution, and how to apply the appropriate treatment. I just did, let's do everything. It must be better. And no, it wasn't better. It was way worse after that.
So Yokota Kampu, so the head of Yashumichi, often tells this story in like every single one of the textbooks we have for Yashumichi. And these are in Japanese. So this is not, you've hit on a problem that is universal. Japan, probably China, Korea, I don't care where you've learned, you probably have this problem where you don't know how to minimalize your treatment and be really focused. And then also, I think you said, if you just use sarin needles, like they're like, that's Japanese treatment. I would actually say, and I know Jeffrey Dan has said, palpation is the number one common denominator. I would say even more so than palpation, although I think that is one of them, is that treating the patient where they're at that exact moment on the table and doing only exactly what they need, that's Japanese acupuncture. And you find that out through your palpation and other skills and utilize it of your ki. But, you know, like that exact treatment for what that exact patient needs right then, and getting out of, you know, the textbook told me to do, I don't know, LI11 for heat. I still don't understand that. The TCM LI11 for heat. I really don't. I learned that at CCS, TCM. They're like, well, you use LI11 for heat. And I was like, why? It's like, I've never even heard of that.
Kuhara Sensei always says, point in book, good for treating the book.
I love that.
And I tell it all the time, because sure, reading the book,
using
that's only applicable that far. And the inference, the unspoken piece, is the point on the patient is good for treating the patient. Yes. Find that point for that person at this moment and apply the appropriate treatment. And then you don't need to do much and amazing things happen. But if I go in with, this is what I think I should be doing, and I don't even check with the body, I just impose what I think on this patient, it tends not to go very well. So exactly. I don't need to be treating the book, I need to be treating the patient. And to learn how to do that, I think that's where we're back to the palpation question. And I agree with Jeffrey as well, that one of those foundational pieces is really training our hands. And getting some ideas in your head is good, but really it's about what do you find here and what do you feel with your fingers when you put your hands on the patient.
Of course, you know, and I just yesterday released a new YouTube video of me ranting about how point prescription doesn't matter. Like it doesn't matter at all. I think you should take, once you graduate and pass your national board exams, that you should take your point prescription books and like sell them to another student, because one of the biggest things too about Japanese acupuncture that I've seen with every single practitioner, whether they're strict Chinese classical acupuncture or even doing TCM, is that they always come back to palpating their hands, and then they find the live point, whether they realize they're doing it or not. They're not very, I think I've seen maybe 2 or 3 Japanese acupuncturists who actually still measure. Those practitioners never, their practices are not long-lived. Let's just put it that way. They don't stay in the profession for a long time. But, you know, like finding the live or active point, you know, active is, I think Stephen calls it an active point, right, for Shido Sensei. And I often say live point for my teachers, but finding where the point is actually presenting itself and then treating it according to how it's expressing itself for that moment is something that you need to be able to palpate for, and you need to be able to answer correctly with your technique. Otherwise, you know, you just end up throwing the kitchen sink at the patient and they go home with
and I think it touches on one of the big things that's different fundamentally about the way East Asian medicine thinks about medicine in general, as opposed to the allopathic model, which the movement in the allopathic model is to this whole idea of evidence-based medicine. And we've done a bunch of studies and we find this and this and this. And so every patient that comes through the door, we do this and this and this without regard to age or body weight or any of those other things. We just do what the science or what the numbers say we should do, because 60% of people responded better to this. So this is the evidence that we have. So this is the way that we do treatment. And for me, East Asian medicine couldn't be further in its idea of how do we approach this person in front of us. Yes, we have all these ideas, we have this experience, but I have to assess who is in front of me right now on the table and how do I approach the point and the technique. And absolutely, this idea of live point location, I think is hugely important. So to really be willing to take each patient and each situation as a brand new experience and assess the individual in front of us and address them right where they are in that moment. Again, I think, you know, we've stressed this a few times now, I think is a huge difference in the way that we're trying to approach this practice.
I agree. Well, you know, I'd love to kind of segue at this point, because we've talked about your education and really, you know, how it's really developed your practice into one that is a consistent, exciting, learning model where you're always able to come back and be like, well, I don't know this, I'll learn this again. I'm going to go and study with this teacher again. And it's really initiated so much enjoyment, and it just sounds like a lot of fun. Like your entire journey sounds like it was exciting and fun and something that you were able to do as a job to get money for, which is even cooler, right? If someone,
they pay me to do this, it's incredible.
I know, it's amazing. I tell my patients, literally, I tell a patient almost every day I'm in clinic, I have the best job in the world. Like hands down, it is. Every time you get a result that is just kind of like, oh, that happened. That actually happened. It's like, wow, I have the best job in the world.
5 years in, still sometimes they stand up and they go, oh yeah, that's way better. And I think to myself, damn, it really works. even this far in, some days I'm still amazed, right? I have a little more professional front on, like, oh, great, your neck feels better. And sometimes inside I'm still like, really? Like, wow, that we just a little bit here and a little bit there, and that's totally different. That's amazing. Like,
I'm impressed that you can be like professional about it, because when my patients are like, wow, that's actually better, I'm like, I know, right? Isn't that
right?
Cool? What would be your advice for someone who really would want to go down this Japanese acupuncture path, or is already on the path and would like to continue it? What would be your advice looking back on your career?
So I'll start with the sort of little more esoteric and then work my way back to the more practical. I think at that biggest level, it's the willingness to be open to new things, to new experiences, to new opportunities, and to just put out the intention that I'm interested in learning more about this. That openness, that idea, that willingness at a very foundational level to say, I'm interested in doing more of this, and where are the people, where are the resources that I can take advantage of to continue to learn. So at a very foundational level, I think the openness and the willingness to continue studying is what brings some of these opportunities into our field. The next piece of that is when the opportunity is presented, to take it. That once someone's there and says, hey, here's the door, I'm going to open the door for you, it's the student's responsibility to actually walk through that door, which can show up a lot of different ways. It can be, all right, I'm going to take the weekend off and travel to Colorado and do this thing, or I'm going to sign up and pay the money to do this opportunity. Whatever it is, when presented with the opportunity to not hem and haw, well, maybe, is it worth it? I'm not really sure. But once the opportunity is there, it's the student's job to walk through the door. So at a sort of philosophical, esoteric level, I think those are two of the most important things, is just being open. And then when you run into some of these experiences, to take advantage of these opportunities. So at one level, I think that is advice that I could offer to people. In addition, there are resources out there, and to keep trying different things, to look at this class, to look at that class, to go through different options until you find something that really works for you. Yes, finding a mentor, finding a senior practitioner that you can study with, as you emphasize very well, I think is incredibly important. I think people feel stymied by, well, where do I find those people? And I believe that openness in the beginning is what eventually opens the door for those people to appear in one's life. More and more, there are opportunities. As we come out of this whole COVID thing, my hope is that we do start to see more in-person opportunities. I'm hopeful that we can start going to Japan again. With the Hari Society, we're going to keep doing seminars. You're continuing to do seminars. And when you find the person that you want to study with, to approach, to ask, hey, I would like to study more. How do I learn more about this? What's the process that I go through? And to, as my Buddhist teacher says, never give up. To always, 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 always keep going. And at least for me, I think at that level is where I think about how to create those opportunities, as opposed to more of the specific particular things, train your hands, learn moxa, that sort of stuff. I think the way to learn is at that sort of deeper level of being open and then seizing the opportunities when they're in front of you.
It's great advice. It's really great advice though.
I mean, it's a little hard to give advice in that way because it's not specific. Like, okay, if you want specifics, sign up for some high desert Hari Sekai classes, like listen to ShinKyu University, like buy Shudo Sensei's, point location video in Japanese and watch it with the sound off. Like, there are lots of ways to do this stuff. But for me, again, I think the real foundational piece is that inward openness and interest, and that opens the doors on the outside once you've got it on the inside.
But I think, the reason why I think I love this piece of advice is I think it's something that even I'm going to retake into myself and reopen myself up to learn, because as you said, we're always learning. So before I created ShinKyu, I had conversations with about 50 different practitioners from all different levels, people who are still students to people like yourself who've been studying Japanese acupuncture for 20, 30 years, And I asked them the same questions. And one of the things that I definitely found was, especially if you had just graduated from, I don't want to learn anymore. I'm just burned out, which I completely understand. TCM school here is really difficult. It's just so hard. It's amazing that anybody can graduate from that school and be alive.
This is why we need a different acupuncture educational model, because we're not turning out practitioners, we're turning out burned out students. And that is not who we want to see at the end of the program. These people are cooked, they're fried, they're not interested anymore. And so a new model of acupuncture education in this country, I think, is essential. So we're turning out people who are excited and interested and want to get out there and want to start practicing and want to start using this, as opposed to just being fried and saying, yeah, I graduated, I passed my boards, now I need 6 months off. That's not who I want to see at the end of an educational program. That says to me something about the way we're doing this in this country is actually not working in terms of turning people into good practitioners.
And I completely agree. For example, when I finished my board exams in Japan, I remember because I had to take them twice because I failed the first time, but I was fried. But I still went to Iyashinomichi every month, because when I went to Iyashinomichi, I was like, oh, thank God, I don't have to study any theory. Like they're not that I don't have to study any theory, but I don't have to regurgitate anything else. And it was oddly peaceful, refreshing.
Yeah. It's not about memorize, regurgitate. It's about getting that medicine in here. And that's what I want to see in the acupuncture education, is how do we get it in here? And sometimes that means people show up to acupuncture school and it's not the right place for them. We don't keep them in acupuncture school just because they can pay the bill. Like, how do you encourage that inside people so they really have the excitement for this medicine? Because that's what it takes to really be a practitioner. Otherwise, they're fried. They practice for a few years. They work in a chiropractor's office and they're like, screw this, I'm done. I can't deal with it.
Well, it's one of the reasons why when I came back to the States, I was so excited that NCCM had an apprenticeship path. Did you know that they had an apprenticeship path?
Oh yeah, they used to have it.
That they're now phasing out. And I was like, why are you phasing that out? That's like gold. Like why aren't you like pushing this?
No, because they understood it in the beginning, and at some point it's been lost along the way, which is why we now need a whole new model of how we're doing this.
I agree. Well, but it comes back to that, what you said of just coming back and, as Jeffrey would say, empty your cup and be willing to have the opportunities and saying, I want to learn. I think that is a beautiful way to live your life, not only to live your life, but to approach this medicine and just say, oh God, I know I've done this for 15, 20 years, but man, how much more could I learn? What more could I bring into myself? How many more teachers could I go and watch and learn from them and take it into myself, so more people could possibly get better through the treatment in my clinic, you know? But I think sometimes you need to say, okay, I don't know anything yet. And it's time for me to just open up and be okay with that and say, you know, my Japanese teacher when I was in college, she told me one of the best pieces of advice I've ever learned in my life. She said, look, Maya, because I told her I'm embarrassed. I don't want to get it wrong. And she said, Maya, look, you're going to be embarrassed every single moment for the rest of your life if you are on the path to greatness. If you are on the path to not being great, you'll never be embarrassed because you're never going to make mistakes. Make mistakes. It's worth it. Make the mistakes, learn from them, and then be open to keep learning.
Yeah,
She told me.
I think it's excellent advice because, I mean, I have learned far more from my mistakes than I have from my successes.
Amen.
That story I tell about overdoing it on that patient, like I say, I keep learning from that. And yeah, I remember some successes as well, but some of those mistakes, I keep learning from them. And we just keep trying. We keep doing the best that we can. And that openness to continue to learn, I think, is what continues to push us forward.
So if someone wanted to continue to learn with the High Desert Hari Society, where would they go to do that?
They would go to highdeserthari.org, and we've got all our stuff. You can sign up for the mailing list on there and you'll get our official announcements about what's going on. So that's one way to do it. People are free to contact me if they want to talk to me personally. You know, I'm open to doing that sort of personal thing, but the High Desert Hari Society, just go to the website, sign up for the newsletter or the mailing list, and then you'll get all our stuff as it comes out.
And then just to be clear, because I don't know a lot about High Desert, all of your workshops are in Santa Fe, New Mexico. Is that correct?
Well, that's how it's been for the pandemic. We had started running seminars around the country, around the world, but the pandemic just shrunk everything back down. So we're currently in person in Santa Fe. And we'll see what it looks like in terms of online offerings or stuff like that. We haven't really done much of that. We've really focused on the in-person education. So at the moment, you know, we've got a seminar with Nigel Dawes on Compo coming up at the early part of March. I'm teaching towards the end of March, and then I'll teach again in September. And that's what we've got for 2022. I assume that we'll start to expand back out again in 2023, but we'll see how it goes. So at the moment, most of those opportunities are in person in Santa Fe.
Cool. Okay. And then I'll make sure to put in the description box below all of the contact information for Ehrland and High Desert Hari Society. So you can go ahead and click in that description box and get all of that information there. I would love to hear any of the takeaways that you had from this video for those of you who are watching. So if you wanted to comment below on, you know, some of the takeaways you've had, and, you know, if you've tried to implement it in your clinic, like how does opening yourself up to learn from your patients in your clinic, what has that taught you is something I think a really good starting point and a little bit of almost homework from this conversation. So put it in the comments below. Love to hear your feedback from that. And then, of course, if you're interested in starting your learning right now for foundational Japanese acupuncture mox technique, you could always check out ShinKyu University. I have free webinars and a lot of social media going on. And you can also, of course, join the program directly. All of that information is in the description box below. You know, the whole purpose of this channel, as I said in the beginning, the mission is to bridge your exceptional TCM theory with exceptional Japanese acupuncture and moxibustion technique, with a little bit of the theory and esoteric thoughts behind that, of course. And one of the small things that you can do to help me support my mission is to like, subscribe, and hit that bell to be notified of all the new videos that are put out on this channel every single week, including amazing conversations with practitioners like Ehrland Truitt. So thank you so much for doing that. Ehrland, thank you so much for your time today. And if you're interested in why point prescription does not matter, you can check out that video right here. All right, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next time.